Now, besides the Macariel, I've also built a Dominix that was kind of imagined to be used for various new events. And this Dominix was uh, imagined to run the new anomalies, both the small ones and the medium ones. Now, the Ramos by default don't have a lot of hit points because their hulls are modified to have a lot more space for drones, for fighters, and stuff like that. But since this ship is designed to be a kite at long distances, it shouldn't be taking much damage. Now, the main drawback with drones is the fact that you can't send them over the maximum control range, and that would be the single the single biggest drawback on the drones. Any other weapon, whether it be missiles, railguns, cannons, lasers, you can fire them basically at any distance, but drones, they have a limited control range, so you basically have to operate within that range. Now, the trick that I did show you in one of the previous videos with the Macariel works with the Dominix, but the main issue with Dominix would be that it doesn't do so much damage with this build. Now, if I do change the build into a build that has a little bit more DPS, I would lose a lot more drone range, and that would be, let's say, quite unpleasant, because I would have to be well within the optimal range of the large drone battleships. Now, if this were a navy, it wouldn't be a problem, but this is a drone boat, and even if you build them to be tanky, they are still drone boats. Now, there are drone boats that are tanky. For example, the Prophecy, Myrmidon, they're very tanky. So not all drone boats suffer from this problem, but the Dominix isn't a tank battleship. You can make it to tank, but it will have its limits. Now, even with a thermocirculation implant, the Dominix would still feel kinda squishy. But nonetheless, let's see how this ship will do. Now, this is a medium anomaly, a medium Lost Wastelander anomaly, and I will try to orbit manually at 128 kilometers. That's basically the one of the optimal distances that you can get on the ship. I think this is basically one of the maximum possible range that you can get. Now, if you can pull the drones to follow you, and you can basically keep them at that at the razor's edge around 250-260 kilometers. Basically, keep the drone within your optimal range, but also go in and out of the drone aggression range, because if you cross the line, then they warp back to 0. But if you manage to bounce between the line, then you can actually make the enemy ships stay there in place, because they don't warp fast, so that can buy you enough time to kill them, and you won't be taking any damage, since it does take a while for them to actually start to aggro you, which is one valid tactic that can be done in this situation here with a ship that doesn't have that much range, and a ship that doesn't have that much tank. Now, based on the damage that I'm taking here, one booster would actually be more than enough. So, while it is kind of difficult to fly this ship for these anomalies, it is definitely not impossible. And the thing that does worry me the most is the fact that the Dominix isn't that fast. It goes about 1 kilometer per second, which is not slow, but the Macarial does go much faster, so that will be the problem. And the signature radius. When you activate the micro warp drive, the signature radius does increase, and the drone ships do hit you easier, but based on what I'm seeing here, it's actually not that bad. It does take some damage, but it's nothing serious. Now, this is just the first wave. We have 3 waves, and based on the damage that I took here, the later waves would definitely be a lot tougher. And this was recorded before I went with the Macarial. Although I would say the Macarial, alongside some of the other battleships, seem to be the best choice for solo battleship, for a solo battleship option. Maybe I thought about the Nestor. The Nestor is very fast, like 3 kilometers per second. So you could technically, if you have a Nestor, you can probably use the Nestor quite easily. Just orbits at 100 kilometers, and they should not be able to do much damage to. Even with the signature radius, it goes very fast, very good armor resistance, so it should be able to easily tank them. So that's also one of the ships that can theoretically run these anomalies very easy. I kind of regret selling the Nestor, to be honest, but at the same time I'm glad that I sold it, because the Nestor, as you guys know, became a lot more expensive lately, and it was a very good choice to sell it, because I made some good ISK. And maybe if I do see or hear that something Sister of Eve related is coming up, then I will definitely get a Nestor back, and when I do get it back, I might build it in a different way and then sell it again for a good price. I mean, it really depends on what happens, but yeah, the Nestor definitely is potentially a very good choice for these anomalies, since you get armor resistance, you get drones, and you get a drone DPS. So yeah, a Nestor is also a really good choice for a medium anomaly, but it is a expensive ship, so you will have to be very careful with it. You definitely do not want to lose a Nestor. These things cost a lot, especially nowadays when we are receiving new content, and the new content is kind of bound to the Sister of Eve ships. It basically utilizes their scanners quite a bit, Cobalt Edge being one of the things that definitely has made those ships quite expensive. Now the auto repairs actually did a very good job. Now I have a damage control here, and if there is anything that I would change on this build, it would definitely be the damage control. It is nice to have a damage control, but not really that necessary when you are running PvE. Basically, it increases the resistance passively, but the active armor tank that I would have with a second adaptive would be much better than basically having one adaptive and one damage control. Now I did take some damage here, and I did take some good damage there. Basically I forgot to move, so I'm going to take range. So even with one armor hardener, I was able to, I mean, I'm able to hold really well, but it would definitely be much easier to tank this if I had a second adaptive. So the Dominix with this kind of idea, with this kind of build, is definitely not a bad idea. Looks to be doable, but it requires I would say better skills. Now my skills for drones, for large drones and for drone battleships aren't really the best, so that also has a effect, I guess. but the Dominix is holding really well. I'm very happy with its performance so far. It is not bad, and you can definitely see the skill difference that I have between the Dominix and between the Macarial. The Macarial just slaps. The Dominix also slaps, but not as much as my Macarial, and that is because of the rigs and of course because of the skills. So, not saying the Dominix is a bad ship. The Dominix is an awesome ship. This thing is very cheap, by the way. I bought this ship for about 200 million, which is insane. The tier 9 battleships are ridiculously cheap for their performance. One of the best price to performance ships in the game at the moment. And you should definitely take advantage of their cheap price tag, since a ship doesn't have to be expensive to perform well. Basically, a good build and a good idea works on any ship, doesn't matter the price tag. I mean, not sure if you guys have seen that cursed Adrestia, like 7.6 billion ship, but has a extremely cursed build. So yeah, expensive ship versus cheap ship doesn't usually result in the expensive ship's victory. In this game, skill, pilot experience matters a lot more than simply what ship you're flying. If a pilot knows how to fly the ship, they will make it work regardless of what's up ahead of them. And honestly, the Dominix been working really well so far with my with my skills that I have for drone battleships. It is funny because for battleships I think I have expert missile skills, I have expert cannon skills, I think I also have expert railgun skills. I lack expert lasers, and I think I lack expert drones on large ships, basically on battleships. Kind of interesting because I can theoretically fly most of the navies. The problem is picking which one would work the best for me. I think in the end a Raven Navy might be the way to go. I think lately I've been leaning towards the Raven Navy. That thing is amazing. And if I do choose a Navy battleship, it is definitely going to be the Raven Navy, because I need a ship that is ridiculously tanky, and I need a ship that can solo carriers. It's very important. I need a ship that can solo carriers, because my Revelation currently is in a museum. I don't fly the Revelation that often. I mean, I skilled out of the Revelation a couple of weeks ago, so the Revelation is currently basically a museum, and I don't fly it, but it has to have a ship that I can afford, and that is definitely going to be a Raven Navy. Now the question is, if I do get a Raven Navy, how am I going to build it? The build decision for that thing is, you know, quite the thing to think about, because I can go with a DPS build, I can go with a glass build with a good tank, or I can go with a tank build. All the options are looking to be very attractive, but I just don't know which one which one would be the best, you know. That is kinda tough to decide. I like the DPS part, I like the tank part. I could technically buy two of them, one for DPS, one for tank, but that would definitely make a hole in my e-squad for sure. So haven't decided what to do about that, but most likely going to be a tanky Raven Navy, because as I always say, a good tank will kill a good DPS ship. I basically see examples of that every day, and I know players. A lot of my friends use the ideas that I have presented. Some of my friends had the idea at the same time I did, and I like to see the same build and the tactic applied in combat because it works so well. I'm impressed by how well some of the builds work. I mean, it's amazing when you can build a ship that can tank like 30,000 DPS with a good build. I find that amazing, and that's not even a passive tank, an active tank that can tank like 30,000 DPS. That's amazing, and all that with the power of being creative and basically thinking out of the box a little bit for some things, and understanding how the ship works and how the build works. I know the game has some pretty insane DPS values out there, but it is very interesting how even with all of these crazy DPS values, you can still create a tank, a brick that can tank that. That is kind of interesting, honestly. At first, back a couple months ago, I thought tank was gone. Like, no, I was wrong. I was very wrong when I said that tank was gone. Tank shines the most. Tank builds shine now more than ever before, actually, if you think about it, because a very good tank still holds ground against something with crazy high DPS, and it kills the ship with crazy high DPS. So numbers are one thing, but real use, real combat is something completely different, since on the field, on the grid, there is a lot more factors than just math to account for. So that's I guess that's what they call the third dimension that I talk about quite often. But this is why I don't usually go all on the math part, because I know math is one thing, and when you take the ship out, that's a whole different thing. And there has been times where the math that I did didn't really correlate with what's actually been happening on the grid, which is fine. I'm actually very happy that that's the case, because if I was right about a lot of things, then things would definitely be not good. But I did get some things wrong, and I'm fine with that. I'm actually happy that I did get some things wrong, because if I were right, then yeah, things would not be that good. But the Dominix here is working really well so far. I mean, this is really fun to do in a fleet. Again, if you this whole event kind of designed to be done with your friends, and I like that, because teamwork is something that's been missing from this game, unfortunately, and this event can definitely bring the teamwork aspect back on track. Could be a fantastic practice for a lot of things. You can actually practice fleet coordination in these anomalies, since these anomalies is, it actually kind of feels like you are fighting players. Kind of feel like PvP, to be honest. So fantastic anomalies to practice fleet operation on, and I would say if your fleet struggles with coordination, then definitely this would be one of the ways on how to practice on getting things to work. When I say get things to work, I usually mean to get things to work in a coordinated way. I haven't been part of a big fleet in a very long time, actually, which is kind of interesting. I kind of miss doing fleet stuff, but I've also started to enjoy solo operations as well. For the most part lately, I have been completely solo. I haven't done a lot of fleet stuff.
We're under attack. We're under attack.
Now what wave this? I think this is the last wave, or one of the last couple ships of the second wave, and then
we're under attack.
The Anomaly will be completed. No, it's been pretty good run so far with these anomalies. Unfortunately, the one time I get a good loot, that gets stolen. I talked about that like 2 or 3 times by now. But it's all part of the game in the end, so not a big deal. Definitely the tank on the ship can be improved by using different modules. I did the same thing with the Macario. Basically with the Macario I used the damage control, and it ended up being kind of useless. Mostly because that damage control was sitting idle, didn't really use it. It's not really... I mean, it's good in some cases. It's good if you accidentally warp in the middle of the wave, but for a sniper, a damage control isn't really that important, since you already would be far away from the enemy ships, and a booster or armor repair would definitely be the better option in this case. So, if you do plan to use something similar to this Dominix, then definitely pull out the damage control and put a adaptive, either a adaptive or put another armor pair, depending on what kind of build. If you go with a full-on sniper, then definitely a shield booster or armor pair, depending if you like to tank shield or armor. Now Dominix can do both technically, although I prefer armor because it is a Galanda ship, and as you know, Galanda ships have more armor than shields. They're primarily designed to tank armor. So in the end, I just leave the... I mean, on some ships, you can easily just do a armor tank or a shield tank. If they have specific bonus on shield or armor, then you should take advantage of the bonus. Which means if the ship has a bonus on armor resistance, then you should go with armor tank. If it has bonus on shield, then you should go with a shield tank. From my personal experience, armor seems to be the generally most accepted one, because it is very easy on the capacitor. It doesn't use your capacitor at all in some cases. Especially if you have a very nice integrated tank build, then you can easily just leave the armor pairs running at all time, and your capacitor will basically never go down. The Hyperion is one such ship that can do that. Abaddon. Abaddon is actually a very interesting one because it has a lot of capacitor. So, if I think an Abaddon, I talked about this in one of the previous videos, but an Abaddon definitely has a very good chance uh, to kind of be a Macarial in terms of how effective it can be at clearing those anomalies, because it has tank, it is fast, and it has some very nice DPS. So the Abaddon's definitely a very good candidate to perform well. Of course, there's the Navy battleships, but the Abaddon costs a lot less. It doesn't produce a 30 billion loss mail, and overall, with a good build, it can have some very nice DPS. I know there's been an Abaddon out there for PvE that has like 8000 DPS with B types. That one is very good. That one is that Abaddon has some very nice DPS. Not my Abaddon, but one of my friends has that ship, and they've been using it for PvE for quite a while. It's a very interesting idea. It outperformed the Apocalypse Strikers, which is amazing. I say amazing, quite interesting, since the Apocalypse Striker is still kind of looked at as the king of PvE, although there is the CNC carrier. But in a lot of situations, the battleship does actually clear fast, which is kind of funny when you think about it. But yeah, in the end, basically, if you ask me, you can fly any ship you like. I don't really follow any meta or something like that. I like to fly ships that I enjoy to fly, and I do tend to basically keep doing that because it's fun. My Apocalypse Striker was always a PvP ship. Rarely use it for PvE. But I do need a PvE ship, and choosing one is always a very tough thing to do. I mean, I usually, as I already mentioned before, I usually like to really like calculate things, because making it a succubus warped in. Not really sure what this succubus thought they were doing, but okay, they warped in the anomaly and they warped out immediately after. Oh well, anyway, yeah, this is the last wave of the anomaly, and I do like how the Dominix performed. Pretty happy with its performance, since it survived. This is a very cheap ship with a, generally speaking, cheaper build, and it easily was able to tank these ships at this distance. I was basically taking aggro, I think, the whole time, since the carrier that was around me was far away, and I was basically the ship that took aggro, and honestly it did tank really well. I can only improve the build even more. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. That was a very interesting run with the Dominix. Very interesting ship, very good choice. A very cheap battleship that can clear the small ones, and with a little bit of tweaking it can also clear the medium ones as well. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments down below. I'll make sure to answer if well, I make sure to answer them the best I can. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.